Hey guys, this is Mr. Articulate. I'm the guy who posts a video to YouTube every night. Video lasts about 5 minutes, and my major goal as I deliver the words in each video is to speak as fluently as I can, and if possible, never say or or any equivalent. I'm going to be speaking very quietly in this particular video due to the surroundings that I am recording this video from, and we'll see how it goes. It can be its own little experiment, trying to speak fluently while also speaking quietly. So, if you are a fan of the movie The Royal Tenenbaums, and you've watched it at least several times, like I have, you'll remember the scene where the character of Eli, who is played by Owen Wilson, is in a phone booth talking to a literary critic right after Owen Wilson's character has done a reading from a new novel that he's published. The novel is an effort to write something avant-garde using experimental language, kind of like the type of writing you would associate with James Joyce in Ulysses, for example. But the thing is, the book is probably not actually very good because it acts as though it's a modernist style experimental work, because it wears the clothing of avant-garde literature. It gets some attention in the press within the world of this movie, and to the extent that he is able to have a reading from the book that is well attended by people who are there to see him, but it's probably not really a good book. And in this phone booth, he's having a conversation with a critic who has reviewed the book. And the critic, in his review, says at some point that Eli, the character, is not a genius, which is an interesting thing for this, albeit fictional, literary critic to go out of his way to say. He doesn't just want to pan the book. He actually wants to say that the author of the book is not a genius, even though, if you're a little more gullible, perhaps, or whatnot, the fact that these avant-garde techniques are used could lead you to think that this author must be a genius. That's a long wind up to what I actually want to say, which is I just listened to a episode of the Bill Simmons podcast, and a journalist from The Atlantic by the name of Derek Thompson was a guest. He's been a guest on the pod a few times before, and I've listened to those previous appearances that he's had on Simmons's podcast too. I've also read a few articles that Thompson has written in The Atlantic magazine, and what I always think when I read him or listen to him is Derek Thompson is not a genius. He's got quite a big platform. He is a regular paid columnist at The Atlantic. He has his own podcast, which is called Basic English, which is hosted on Bill Simmons's network of podcasts, which is called the Ringer Podcast Network. And he basically tries to be a Malcolm Gladwell type, but it just seems to me like everything he says is a mix of things that are really pedestrian, that have been said 1,000 times before, or things that are original thoughts to him, but are very unconvincing thoughts. He will state a problem or state a question, and then his answers, or his proposed answers, don't work. They don't have coherency. They don't have depth. He just sort of pulls ideas out of the air in a very unsatisfying way. I'll give just one example before this video ends. one of the articles I have read by him in The Atlantic started from the premise that millennials are not well represented in positions of power and prestige across so many different industries. Politics continues to be dominated by baby boomers and to some extent Gen X people. Millennials have made very little headway in national politics. Likewise, in various forms of media, directors skew old, great authors skew old. All our movie stars are the same people who were movie stars 25 years ago. There are very few millennial actors or actresses whom you would call movie stars, the way that you would call Tom Cruise or Leonardo DiCaprio or Meryl Streep, Kirsten Dunst, whomever, a movie star. And this is something I've noticed too, and I've noticed for a long time. We don't have brilliant young scientists the way we used to. There are no young scientists who are blazing trails and getting lots of attention. You could go on and on. And to me, the obvious explanation is that millennials on the whole are just or I will say the most talented millennials in every field are simply not as talented as people in those fields used to be. So our most talented people are not as talented as the most talented Gen Xers, the most talented baby boomers. And the really interesting question is, why would that be the case? And that would be a topic for a different video. But so Derek Thompson started off his article with a real observation, and he proffered 5 theories for why, right? He doesn't come to conclusions. He just says, here's a noticeable thing, and here are my 5 theories. I don't know which one is right, but I'm going to give them to you, the reader. And none of the 5 theories were that millennials as a whole are less talented than Gen X people and baby boomers. And it was just unbelievable to me that you could pose the question that he posed in the article and list not 1 or 2 or even 3 theories, 5 theories, and none of them would be there's something in us as millennials that on the high end of our abilities make us less special than the high ends of the generations that have come before us. So that's just one random example, and it's all I've got time for in this video. Thank you.